I'm Kiera Morgan. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Coffee with Kiera, sponsored by the Human Being in Newport and Lincoln City. And today I'm excited to be here at the Oregon Army National Guard in Newport with Sgt Bobeda, who is with the Army National Guard recruiting station. So we're going to find out all about the wonderful things that the Army National Guard does for our community. But first, let's start off, Sergeant Bobeda. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
My name is Staff Sergeant Bobeda. I'm with the Oregon Army National Guard. I've been serving this country in Oregon for about 10 years this October. I've been through all different types of jobs and trades with the Oregon Army National Guard, and I didn't actually join until I was 30, so obviously that puts me at 40 this year. We do. I just love what I do. I've been all sorts of jobs, from operation NCOs to training NCOs to analysts, and finally, this year I'm taking over as a Lincoln County recruiter, which is a great position, and getting to work with our young youth and up to our 35-year-olds who have jobs.
So let's talk about what the Army National Guard is for those who don't know.
So the Oregon Army National Guard is our part of the Army that actually stationed in Oregon. It's like a kind of a 50-50, and we are under our governor. And so we do mostly state missions, which is Oregon fires. We were there for the COVID vaccines. We were there for this last year. We put over 30 people in unemployment offices when people needed, when it skyrocketed there. We does federal missions are a smaller part of what we do. We have about 2 to probably 10 federal missions on a small account. This unit just got back from a federal mission, but this unit has also done a lot of Cascadia work. And so the Oregon Army National Guard is something different than Big Army, something different than Marines and Air Force and Navy. We are stationed and we are a state entity that will help the state when there's a natural disaster, but also when there's not. When there's just not many state employees or employees to help out the state, they'll call us in because we're already a paid entity, and it kind of really helps the state when it comes to those things that I said before.
Well, and the Army National Guard was very effective during COVID in
Yes.
helping folks out. Are you still doing that kind of work with the increase with RSD and now, and COVID obviously hasn't gone away?
Right. So we actually put hundreds of soldiers in the hospitals during the big part of COVID, and that was also giving our medics. We're giving vaccines. We were actually at the state hospital. They were downsized, and we had people there moving patients around, checking patients in and out, heat temperatures at the doors. And so we are involved, just not such a huge capacity. Through that, though, they've actually helped out. So we've gotten many of our guardsmen hired onto hospitals with such a great rapport from the hospital staff that we actually got hired on. So we have some of our staff that moved to full-time positions in the hospital helping all the time. We do have programs with the JAG office as working straight because we're a state entity working directly with the state to help with vaccines and COVID.
So, what are some of the benefits of being in the Army National Guard?
Well, that's something I'd really like to touch on. So we're different than Big Army and Marines. We have all their benefits, which is the GI Bill and the VA retirement at 20 years. But because we're part of state of Oregon, our government has actually signed into the Oregon Army National Guard new programs. So instead of what we call tuition assistance, you can actually get any university, any private college, any really college in Oregon 100% paid for on top of a 36-month paid for. So they've really moved the guardsmen into the kind of Oregon promise and those programs that help kids go to college. So used to be in the old days, it used to be a tuition assistance where you could go to community college. Now we have people at OSU. I just put an officer in the U of O, and we have our poster child who's going to Willamette University to get his law degree, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars paid for by the Oregon Army National Guard to just serve our state. So those are the education benefits. People at the hospital say my insurance is better than theirs. We do have amazing insurance through TRICARE that the soldiers and their families, it's so cheap and they pay right through the drill check right before they have to pay taxes. We have just the service. Putting on this uniform and the camaraderie between you and your teammates, between leadership. Our soldiers and our leaders have so much they can bring to the civilian world because of what they're learning with the Oregon Army National Guard and our programs.
So let's clear up a misconception. You don't have to have previously served in one of the military, like the
Branches.
Marines or the Navy or something like that, in order to be part of the National Guard, right?
Not at all. Actually, our biggest intake is high schoolers. From 17 years old to 35 years old, you can join the Oregon Army National Guard. If you have prior service, those years are added on after 35, and that's why you see some people joining at 40, 42, and on. But no, most of our people that come in are those without job skills. 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds right out of high school that want to be diesel mechanics, welders, carpenters, plumbers, electricians. Infantry, it's a great skill, but not something you bring to the civilian world. But it's one of the biggest MOSs in Oregon because it's an adventure MOS. Those guys are the ones that, and girls and young ladies that want to get out there and have that command status of leading others on a team. But there are MOSs that we have drone pilots. We have a drone pilot that came right out of Lincoln City 2 years ago, and now he works for Intel. So there are jobs with us that will give you job skills. But most of them, yes, our biggest influx is high schoolers. And then our second would be prior service, Marines, Air Force, Army, that just want to complete that service, but not in a full-time capacity.
Okay, now you have to explain what is an MOS.
So military service obligation and military operations service. So it's MOS is your job. So you have 11 Bravo, which is infantry. Here at this facility, we have the 224 Engineer Company, which is horizontal engineers. We have over 105 pieces of equipment, and we're a huge excavation company. So we have dump trucks, graders, we have excavators, we have rollers, and anything that you see in the civilian world that's bright yellow and made by Cat, we actually have made by Cat, but they're tan. And our guys get to actually go out there and run graders at 17 to 19 years old, run dump trucks right out of high school. And that's actually our biggest selling point with our unit is getting a job in the outside world. Our training allows these kids to go straight to Knife River, get a job without a CDL, and get hired on at $26 to $29 an hour right out of high school. And that's happened to about 7 of my soldiers just this last year. So it's more than just serving our state. What you get out of the Guard and benefits is actually benefiting the soldier once they're in. They realize a lot more than they thought.
And what's the time commitment? Is it a 4 year, 6 year, 8 year? How does that go?
So prior service, most of them come in for their try ones, and they just want to try out the National Guard in Oregon, or they moved here, and so they can do a try one. When you come in for the first time, you can do it for 3 years, you can do 4, but most people choose the 6x2. Everybody has an 8-year contract. So it doesn't mean you're active for 8 years. It means that for 8 years, let's say if we had World War III, they could pull you back, right? Instead of going and trying to find more. But most people do a 6-year contract because it allows you to have all the benefits of that free college and a bonus and that job skills. So that's the main one that they usually do right off the bat. But there are all different years depending on what line of service you want to do.
And let's talk a little bit about your work in the local community.
I would love to. So I've been operations NCO here for 5 years. This is my 5th year. I just became a recruiter in June to stay on the beautiful Oregon coast. They offered that to me, and I love that. But for the last 4 or 5 years, our biggest thing with Lincoln County is we've been helping with Cascadia as one of our big projects. The college. The college has 2 or 3 connexes that they put in full of water and food, and they're one of the stations for Cascadia. Well, when they first put it in, they just took a connex, put it on some dirt, and filled it with 55,000 gallons of cans of water from Rogue, which was amazing. Well, what happened in Oregon Coast? It rained, and the connex sunk about a foot in the ground. So on top of that, we brought our equipment in, dug out the door, emptied the Connex, moved the Connex. We brought in gravel compactors. So we've done 7 Connexes, Connex sites around Lincoln County for Cascadia, and that's some of the local stuff that we do. We also built a road down in Seal Rock. We've done some excavation with our D6 cats on city property, trying to get stuff prepared. We try to help out a little bit with the cemetery over in Toledo when we can. A few years before I came, there's a hiking trail that actually goes all the way to Toledo and past. It's a pretty famous, and I guess we are the ones that actually really worked on that and built it. So we take on any project as long as we are not taking work away from a contractor and we can work with the city. Right now, we're working on getting a contract with the airport, and so we'll start doing some work out there since it's a municipal airport. Um, I've also about 4 years ago helped the Fish and Wildlife bury a whale down in it was Seal Rock area, and they just didn't have the equipment, and they didn't want to pay people to go onto the beach. So we drove onto the beach, and it was a great experience. But we got to bury a 26-foot baby whale. So
Yeah, we don't blow them up anymore.
no, uh,
Let's talk about your work with the high school students locally.
yeah. So I got hired on as a recruiter in June. Was a little reluctant, but after that, I got talked to by there's a lady named Melinda Dye in our community. She's one of the head of Aspire programs, and I want to talk a little bit about Aspire program. The Aspire program came around a few years ago, but it's building bigger and bigger. So the Aspire program in our high schools is what actually puts a mentor who is maybe a college grad or a trade school and puts them with a junior or senior and helps that junior or senior do their FAFSA, do their any job skills or anything they need to get to college. It's a great program. So honestly, they asked me to be a mentor at one school, and then it took off, and now I'm a mentor at Toledo, Taft, Waldport, and Newport. And I spend 1 day a week at each school, more, I mean, as much as I can, and it's really helped me give back to the schools. Like what I tell the schools is, hey, I'll give you 90%. And you know what? Kids get interested after a while when they see me in the schools. And those who are military interested, I get to sit down and tell them about the National Guard, but also tell them about the Air Force and Marines and Army. And it comes down to if they want to leave Oregon, usually I'm talking to them about the Army and Marines. But usually, if they really like their mom and they want to stay here in Lincoln County, we talk about the Oregon Army National Guard. And so they still can serve their country on a federal mission and a state mission, but not have to move so far away from home.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And you work with these kids uh, to help them to see what they can get for their future, right?
Right. So the first thing we do is talk to a kid about what interests them. Some of these 90% of kids don't know what they're going to do. You got those 10% that are easy because I'm going to go OSU. My dad went to OSU. You know, they have that lined up what they want to do, or their mom and dad are fishermen or police, or you have about 90% of kids that who knew what they wanted to do when they were 17 years old. But the great thing is you find their interest, and it's not just gaming in their mom's basement. It's actually, hey, I've always wanted to help person. And right now in Waldport, I just spoke to a young lady yesterday. She has a heart to help others, and she wants to be a state trooper. I asked her why she wants to be on the highway, and she said, well, she thinks that's the fastest she can go in a police car. So she would rather work there than in town, which is it's finding her interest, but she also wants to serve. So maybe a military police or maybe even anything can portray to that. So helping these kids and really just finding out what they love, especially when it comes to sports too. You know, a lot of sports and different characters between football, uh, they have different thoughts in life, and so a mentor helps them to go from high school to finding out maybe college isn't their way, maybe a trade school.
So when you join the Army National Guard for Oregon, do you go through a boot camp? Is it full time all the time, like a regular job, so to speak, or are you on call? How does that work?
So after you swear, go through the paperwork and you're qualified, you actually go to a boot camp and you'll usually be around our other Army candidates. We're a subsidy of the Army. So you'll go to boot camp and sometimes it's 6 weeks, sometimes it's 16 weeks for your AT and your boot camp together to learn your job skills. You're at a base, Fort Leonard Wood, Fort Jackson, Relaxin, like we call it, Fort Bragg, and Fort Drum. So you go there for your skills and you come back to Oregon. So mainly time you come back to Oregon and then you join up with your unit. Now with your unit, you will only be serving 2 days a month. Sometimes it's three if you have an extra long drill. And then you have your big training is during the summer. You have 15 days where your commander can kind of see where you're at. You do your qualifications, but you also get to do some really cool projects during that 15 days. And that's so they can line those up. So it's just a part-time soldier for full-time benefits. So you get the same benefits that you do unless you're right. When you're on a base, you're full time. And with that full time gives full time benefits. But with the guard, you're part time. You still get all the greatest education benefits, but you do pay for like our insurance. But when you do your drill check for 2 days, your insurance check will just come right out of your drill check. And so you're kind of getting that same insurance, but you don't have to live in Florida.
Now, do you have support from employers? Because I imagine if they're doing National Guard
Yeah.
part-time, they also are working, right?
Right. You know, I would not. I haven't met an employer yet that doesn't support us in what we do. This country is made of amazing women and men in the military or in the National Guard that actually go on to business. I mean, a lot of our skills is leading others and training others, and a lot of our officers who are, lieutenants and captains actually have outside businesses. A lot of them run because they're part-time construction companies and stuff. So when it comes to business, we are protected under the same laws as Big Army and them that a business can't fire you, can't not promote you, can't demote you if you're serving in the National Guard. So we have that. But also, businesses are excited. Soldiers can actually elect their bosses to get awards from the National Guard, and getting an award from a 3-star general is pretty cool when you're just a little shop on the coast. And so there are other bonuses too that come with that. That you're one of your employees, if you're a good boss, can elect you to actually get awarded by the Oregon Army National Guard. And when people come in your business, most people look at that and go, wow, they support. So,
All right. Sergeant Bobeda, is there anything else that you would like to add?
yeah, I would like to add I am in Lincoln City. I am the new recruiter of Lincoln City and Lincoln County. And so I'm stationed right here at the Newport Armory, right next to Pig and Pancake. There's not a lot on the coast when it comes to advertisement, but I would love to speak with businesses. And if anybody is interested, would love to call me or come down and talk to me. I'm always open, and I would just love being part of this community.
Wonderful. Well, we appreciate very much what you and the other soldiers do to support not only Lincoln County, but the state of Oregon as well. And thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Coffee with Kiera. And we're sponsored by The Human Being in Newport at 6th Street and Highway 101, and in Lincoln City at the north end of town on the west side of the highway by TLC Credit Union. Reporting for Oregon Coast Breaking News, I'm Kiera Morgan.